it really requires a clinician to think about where and how I'm going to place my objects. And that is where the role of training a doctor comes in. I feel if we are trained, we may not spend crores on this, but we can at least make some model which will be relevant to us because of that small objective which we want to reach, which may not be very fancy of a clinic, but at least a small little thing. I'm also going to show you some examples just for educational purposes. And one of them, which I found really interesting, is a virtual training model of operational medical training, which is actually being done by US Air Force.
Military personnel need to be prepared to treat and stabilize a wide range of injuries across the continuum of care. But current training methods required to maintain medical readiness are expensive, time-consuming, and limited. To meet these challenges, CMEX has developed the Valor program. This virtual reality medical simulation system is designed to practice clinical and operational decision-making in a fully immersive environment, while also saving time, money, and resources. Created with over $10 million in U.S. Air Force research and development funding, CMEX is already in operational use at over 20 installations within the U.S. Air Force and Defense Health Agency. Virtual reality training offers huge advantages over traditional simulation mannequins, which are expensive, cumbersome, and very limited in what they can portray. With VR, the patient can be a warfighter with a traumatic brain injury on the battlefield, a local national with multiple traumatic injuries on a medevac flight, or a contractor suffering the effects of high altitude. It's getting real hard to breathe. Simulate the wide variety of training environments from the side of the road after an IED explosion to the inside of a CV-22.
So it has many such things in it. And what level of domain is it for educators here? Miller's pyramid of competence. Anybody? It's not does. It's actually just clicking that device. It's not putting it itself. So it's still at a knows how level. Sir, am I right? It's not actually doing the skill. So when he had to put the tourniquet, he just touched the tourniquet, and tourniquet just went to that site and got itself done. So if you remember, as an educator, this is still at a knows how level, but it's an important tool because maybe Air Force thought that this kind of a training is required before they actually face a situation like this. And it's a brilliantly made model, but it's still not reaching does. Right. Let me go back. I'm not going to show you a virtual patient because sir is going to have lots of them. Let me just take you to another one of this.
This has been the most eye-opening and intriguing learning experience in my life so far.
Altera is going to be the highest.
Also has sounds because we felt sounds are important in this. Again, if you notice, it's actually a skill. It's just picking up objects and putting it in 3D. And this is where it differs, where you have a team management now, where other avatars have come in and they're going to compress, they are going to do, do a task together. So just wanted to highlight that how it has grown. So you have one person doing the CPR, the other person, and it's like a team that you have made, which is very good for inter-professional team building, which we often talk about in education. So this is another example. And let me just take you to one virtual clinic now. Here the text messages are coming when you could do a particular task. That's like learning method. Various choices. And so on like that. I just wanted to give you a glimpse. So what it helps us understand is that sky is the limit as an educator. But what is most important is something called as a game product design. Whenever you want to come out with VR or AR, you have to have a game product design. It's not a game, it's a design which you want of what characters should play in it, what all will happen, what do I want the learning to be, where a text should message, when should he get points, when is the time when he should be told that this is wrong. That is an entire design framework that one has to make. And that is the role of an educator. I think if we are able to make that game product design well, because we understand what we want in the available technology, we have engineers to back up to make the right product for us. So with this, the last part of it is, of course, the most important too, and hence, what are the risks for VR and AR? One of the very, very reported risks, especially of VR, is the motion sickness, because you're in a virtual 3D world, which is actually not perceived by your foot. So there's a kind of a dilemma to the brain. And this, especially if you're having a learning training moment, which is of a longer duration, it can cause little problem to the person who's doing it. The second for both is information overload, because so much of information is going to the student at one time. So maybe you have to decide how you're going to build that or how many versions you're going to have so that he does or shows how. The intensification of experience is another thing where the person is actually coping with that disaster live. Although it's in virtual reality, but he's going to have an emotional stress to it. He has to respond to it, and that should be kept in mind as an educator. And last is, of course, which is most important, the experiences that he's having cognitively, emotionally, and behaviorally, he should be able to disengage from it when he's reaching VR, when he's coming out of the VR. Or when he's entering the VR, he should realize that he has to be detached. And that would also require some kind of a training to our learner. Now, the issues at hand currently are the devices and the technology which don't talk to each other. They are still in silos, most of them. And the social issues, which is privacy, security, and ethical issues. One of the very important papers, which I would like to quote here, is by Slater, 2020, the ethical issues of this realism dilemma. Those of you who should read it, who are thinking of being an educator using AI, because this is where you will, right from the beginning, you will understand what all can while you're making a scenario. And hope you begin your journey to the inevitable. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am, for that very invigorating and engrossing talk. In fact, you have always charted the uncharted. In fact, and more so, you have today encouraged us all to, in fact, break our mental shackles and embrace this new technology. For that, it would definitely empower us all to train the INGs to what they are, or in fact, from what they are supposed to be doing. In fact, to be the world leaders in medical giving healthcare. I would now invite two questions from the audience, in case if there are any. So please.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. My name is Dr. Amit Agarwal. I'm a professor in medicine at Symbiosis Medical College. So I really appreciate the way you have concised the talk into the usable intelligence into our day-to-day teaching that we do for our undergraduates and postgraduate students. But I just want to share here my experience with the virtual reality thing, where one of the companies they came and they were, promoting, let us say, and they just gave us a, we have to wear that headgear, and then we have to, see, like, let us say a simple example, how to put in an IV cannula, or let us say take an ABG sample. But what I could understand wearing this gadget was that it is a very, tough thing to maneuver, and at the same time, the real situation where you learn how to put an IV cannula has so many things which you actually teach. When I was taught by my, senior, how to put an IV cannula, there were so many things which I understood at that time, which are still fresh in my memory. But when it comes to a virtual domain, I saw that they were it became very artificial in a way, and there were so many things which were missing, which can only be understood in a real life situation when you actually take an ABG sample or an IV cannulation. So my understanding here at this point is that it will be very limiting. I don't know, in due course of time, it might improve the way intelligence is growing as people are talking about haptics and the touch feel and all those things will come. But as of now, my understanding is that it will be very, limiting in a way to actually impart that learning to an individual who is learning, let us say, a basic skill of cannulation or taking an ABG sample, or let us say doing a percussion, or because it looks very fancy when we see the picture, but wearing a headgear and then doing so many things, it actually is much simpler when you have a resident standing besides you and you're giving him the information right in a real world situation. So any comment on that?
So I think what you've said is the highlight of this article, because I fully agree with you that when you see something which is brought to you, you find some nuances which probably could have been bettered. Now, my take on this would be that technology is in, and sensors, with the development of sensors, with the development of the software which we can access to, the amount of data storage, the cloud storage that we have, it's easy to do. So I think the only thing which is missing is that the design which was made was not by the doctor. So you are ready to start writing your game product designs. I think that is where we are lacking right now, that we are hesitant in starting it, and we are depending totally on technology-driven people, where obviously I don't blame them. They also don't have that insight. But if a doctor is writing that game product design after talking to the clinicians, after talking to the doctors, what exactly do you want in this skill training session? And if we write that design, I'm sure it's going to see the light of the day, at least hope for it. But I think you have just summarized what I wanted to say, and that's why I went so simple. Thank you so much.
Colonel Karuna, may I?
Sir?
Excellent talk as usual.
Sir, thank you.
Excellent talk. Now, I just wanted to ask you, AR, VR, cost of a goggle.
So HoloLens is around, in fact, I was very interested to buy it myself. So for myself, then I thought my husband is going to be after me. So it's almost around 1.75, 1.8
So for a
lakhs.
medical college with 150, 200 students, how many do you recommend?
Now, it again depends on the model, sir. If it's just single user, one HoloLens is okay.
For
But
200 students?
But why go for a HoloLens, I'm saying? At least before we go to the HoloLens, start learning how to make those models using the HoloLens. The problem is HoloLens comes and we don't know what to do with it. In fact, that way MUHS was very smart. I mean, they have really had this hub and spoke model where people have made models with the HoloLens. So many is getting added on, and actual realistic